So if you're just joining in, hi Louise. I'm guessing you can hear me. So just to confirm, if you can hear me, please just drop a comment. I can hear you or something, just so that we're sure that everything's fine. Oh, thank you very much, Hallway. You can hear me. Awesome. Right, so I just want to try and put the topic in the chat so that I can pin it down, and then we should start. Okay, I'm not figuring that out. Okay, anyway, so let's just get started, and whoever is coming in later can just join in. Thank you so very much for joining. Hi, Tosin, how are you? Thanks for all your help and your support. If you're just joining in, please feel free to just drop a question in using the question mark at any point in time, so that way I can pick all the questions when we towards at the end of this session and answer as many of them as would be there. Thank you so much for being here. And if you're catching the replay of this, thank you so much for taking the time out to watch this replay. I'm guessing that you are doing that because you want to be better equipped, you want to be better empowered, you want to be more knowledgeable about what it is and how it is that you can actually acquire property easily and using off plans. So to get started, my name is Lerato Okoro. I am the founder of Lerato and Adams. We are a real estate brokerage based in Lagos, Nigeria. We help people and middle income earners, basically working class people, to acquire properties in the easiest manner possible. As much as possible, we also work to ensure that you are not just buying property for the sake of buying property, but you are also buying property because you want to be able to create wealth, you want to be able to create cash flow. So we are very particular about how we match our clients with the properties that they get. And sometimes we even tell our clients that we would rather sacrifice the time in which you're going to get the property that you want to ensure that we are getting you the right property and we're matching you appropriately. So today we're going to talk about off plans and how you can leverage off plans, what off plans are. I know that there has been a lot of talk and there's probably been a lot of mention about off plans and all of that, and some people just hear the word and it literally just flies off the top of their head. Why? Because they're not even sure what the word means. All they know is that it is a stage of the property process. But today I want to help to clear all of that, so that if you didn't know, after you watch this, you can go and say, yes, you now understand what off plans are, how they work, and how you can actually use them. So to get started, I'm going to start from what off plans are. Off plans is basically the process by which you are investing in a property, starting from when it is just a plan. So a developer would come up with the plan to actually start a construction project, and because they're also looking for ways in which to sell off very quickly or to even gain traction in the market, especially because of the way our economy is now, they can decide to start selling from even before they break ground. So they would have a location, they would have their designs, they would know what they want to build, but they can start marketing. And at that point in time, that is when a project is literally said to be, we are selling off plan. That is the best description for what off plans are. Yes, off plans can still go on to as far as when you are seeing the structure and the pillars and some of the brickwork of the property that you are looking to invest in, and all of that could still fall in as off plan. Why? Because a bulk of what you're going to be making your decision to buy into that property off of is going to be based on the designs from the plan. So every time I mention plan, I'm talking architectural plan, the 3D layout and stuff. So you're probably looking at 3D designs of what the building is going to look like in the end, but you're also looking at the layout, the architectural layout of the, from a plan, which is showing you how the interior of the property is actually laid out. Now, a lot of times when people, and I say this from experience, I say a lot of time when clients come and then they say, oh, we want to buy a property, and we say it's off plan, sometimes they don't even ask for what the interior of the property is, the interior layout is going to look like. And in a lot of ways, that's very worrisome for us, because more often than not, people like that will get to the end or towards the end of the construction stage, and then they would not be happy with what it is that they are getting. And I'll explain why, further down the line. But just bear in mind that it would basically come to a circumstance where the person is saying, I ordered something, but that's not exactly what I got. But let's just hold on to that, and we'll talk about that later on in the session. So if we're going to look at what an off-plan property is, any property that you are going to, that they have either not started building or they have just started building, where you are looking, you're seeing a site that is basically just the base work and maybe the initial foundation or even just the first floor of the construction, then all of that is off-plan. And with off-plans, you also have the flexibility to be able to stagger your payments, and that is to a large extent, especially for our society, that's the biggest beauty of investing via off plans. Why? Because there are two things actually. One, you're going to be getting literally the best price that property can ever be, and two, you're going to have a longer period of time through which you can actually stagger your payments. So instead of you going to a developer and having to pay up everything all at once, with an off plan you can actually start off by paying as low as 10%. Some developers are even taking 5%, and they take the 5% because what they say is, what we really want is the commitment of subscribers, and after you pay the 5%, you can then pay up the rest in installments as we go along. And that basically is what becomes the most attractive feature for off plans here this side of the world, because who are we kidding? Not many of us have all of this money just sitting down somewhere and we say we want to put it in a property. And those of us who probably even have the money, you also have 2, 3, 4, 5 other things that you want to be able to do with money, so you don't want to have to go and lock down all your cash into that property, and the property is not even ready for you to move into. So when we talk about how it is that you can leverage off plans, that is the first way. You can leverage off plans by not burning out all your cash flow at once and staggering the payments. Second opportunity or flexibility that you get is the fact that you can actually contribute to what would be the interior design or layout of the property, and I'd like to explain that a bit more. With every project that a developer, especially in Lagos, is going into, they have had to go and get building permits, they've had to get approvals and all what's not. So that means that the exterior look of the building cannot change. If it's going to change, it'll probably be very minimal, maybe in painting or something like that. But to a large extent, how they have submitted their drawings to say this is what the exterior of our building is going to look like. That's what it has to look like at the end. If any one of them should tell you that that they can change the exterior facade of the building for you, then that is going to, I mean, I would mostly advise that you do not even listen to that type. I mean, that's assurance. Why? Because more often than not, you get into trouble than you actually end up getting what it is that you want. So with off plans, focus on what the interior looks like. Yes, the exterior is also important, because nobody wants to live in a property that doesn't look good, or that they don't feel comfortable being able to say, yes, this is home. And there's just this aesthetic feel, or aesthetic and emotional feeling that you get when you are driving in home and you just see your property and it's like, yes, welcome home, and that looks good. Like, that is fine. But if you're looking to make any changes with your off-plan property or investment, then know that you can only make the changes on the inside. And that you would also have to discuss with your developer, because some changes may now fall under the title of customizations that would cost more than what the developer has budgeted to spend on the property. But if they are minor changes, say for example you don't want a full wall dividing your dining room and your living room, and maybe you just want it to be completely open plan, or you even just want a half wall in there where in a space where it was initially an open plan, then those kind of things could probably be absorbed, and that would also be dependent on discussions with your developer. So that is advantage number 2 that you can actually enjoy when you do go invest in the off-plan route. Now the third one is the fact that the price that you are buying or buying in at that point in time, dependent on when it is that you're actually buying in. And I would say that because people who are buying in before they break ground, they pay the lowest price. So you would probably see maybe a duplex in, say, Ikoyi or VI, or even in Lekki, that they have plans to build, and you know that in the end, that by the time you're looking at the buildings in the end, you'd probably see something that is being valued as much as 500 million. And I say 500 million because I'm thinking Ikoyi now, right? And Ikoyi would probably be 500 million, for example, for that type of building. However, within that construction, that project that you are seeing and they're valuing it at 500 million, you would probably have people who have paid as low as 250, 280. Why? Because they keyed in right from the beginning, right from literally before they broke ground or just after they broke ground. So the time at which you key in to an off-plan project is also an advantage for you. Why? Because you can also get, better pricing than what would actually be by the time they have started building, or the time that they have gotten to a point where you are seeing the form of the building, or even when they have fully built. If you're buying a building when it is fully built, trust me, you are paying full price for that investment. And who wants to pay full price? Or why should you even pay full price if you don't have to pay full price? So for us, when we're talking to our clients and our people who come to invest through us, we always advise that if they can make the time to wait for the property investment that they want to get into to actually mature, then they should. And more often than not, that can happen when they've given themselves the space to actually plan towards acquiring that property. So I would always say that if you are an investor or you are somebody who's looking to buy a home, please plan for it. That way you can actually give yourself enough time and flexibility to actually have more options than buying just what is. So think about it like it's your kid's birthday, for example, and you want to buy your kid a cake. You go to a shop and you just buy a cake off the shelf. What you're getting when you buy that is a basic cake. Like, it would either be a round cake or a square cake or something. But if you go to a baker and then you order a specific type of cake, you will definitely get something different, probably even at a better price. Why? Because you have you have gotten some concessions. You've probably, probably not subjecting yourself to the fact that you're just taking what is and is what's coming at a set price, and that way you are getting better off. So that's just a literal example about that. Please, I'd like to know if we're following, just something to know that I'm not here and talking to myself. A comment, you understand. A practical example would just be really good. Which of the points do you like? Just a comment or something in the chat box would be really nice. Thank you very much. Or even if it is just you popping the hearts. So I'm not talking to myself. Oh yes, thank you. Awesome. You guys are so nice. So we've talked about 3 points that are advantages for people that are investing in off-plan. Now let's talk about how to choose the off-plan property for you. Sometimes when we are out scouting and people say, oh, we saw this one, and okay, yes, Tosi, you're learning. Hi, Tosi, you can't be learning as much this time. Well, anyway, it's nice to hear that you're learning. Glad you're getting value. Hey, hallway, thank you. Oh, thank you, educated. Okay, that's awesome. Right. Okay, so talking about things, how we match off-plan properties with the clients that come to us, and I'm trying to make it as easy, as simple as possible, because with practical examples, so it's not as if I'm talking theory. I'm not talking theory. I'm talking experience, things that we've done. We've done this mode of investing for clients for a minimum of 3 years. There was actually a post that we put up recently, and we talked about a client who made her payments within 3 years and has gotten her building, because that is just something that we have done. We've done it. It's successful. We've done it. We've held the hands of clients through the process. So how do we match our clients to off-plan investments? The first thing that we look out for is to understand what the client wants, what the client needs. So, for example, Tosin comes to us and says, oh, we want to buy a property, we want to change our house, or I even just want a property that I can invest in and something I can put on the market and all. Now, an investment property would maybe not be as selective as when you're taking on a personal property, because most of the time with investments, it's mostly about the numbers. The numbers are what drives for investment properties. But when you're taking on something for a personal use, then it gets a little bit more tactical. And there we really need to understand the client. We need to understand their current lifestyle, or the lifestyle that they want to be able to live at that point in time when they are in the property. And then we want to also understand where it is that they function, how they function, things that they like, things that they don't like, and things that, and just all those kind of details are the things that go into the process of us being able to choose a property to match with a client. And after that, the next important, after we understand what the client wants, the next thing that we actually go out to look for would be the reputation of the developer. Now, why do I talk about that? Because in Nigeria, and if you have been anywhere near the property market, you probably have heard about stories about where people are saying, oh, I paid for a property 4 years ago and I didn't get my property. I'm not interested in doing off plans because the developers just don't deliver. Or they say, by the time I got my property, it was substandard compared to what it was that we were told that we were getting. Now, a lot of these things can happen. And to be honest, yes, there may be situations that may cause for a property to not be delivered at a time that it was said it's going to be delivered. And those may be normal. But when you start hearing, getting stories about 4, 5, 6 years down the line, and you don't even see a structure, then the baseline of that is the reputation of the property developer. It's plain and simple. The reputation of the track record of the developer is what was not taken into cognizance when you were choosing to go with that developer. think of it in the same manner for those of the people who probably use caterers, or you use tailors, for example, or even just general merchants that you buy things off of. If you've had somebody that you consistently buy things off of, you've gotten used to how they, what they look out for. You've gotten used to how they deliver. So that way, that in essence is their track record, because that track record is what keeps you there. But if you're going to now patronize a new person, that person may be able to deliver. But if for something like property, that is an important thing, because, and we don't say this to not give new developers the chance or anything, but property investing is so dicey, it's so sensitive, and it is a lot of money. It's not the 20,000 naira that you're going to use to buy something and then you say, oh, you can very easily get a refund. You are putting in hundreds of thousands of naira, millions at any point in time into that investment. So the track record of the developer is very important. And we're not saying that every developer has to be perfect at every point in time, but at least we should be able to see that you either have the partnerships and technical partnerships probably, or even the financial partnerships, to be able to ensure that you are delivering on your promise to the clients that we bring to you. So for us, the reputation, the track record, the backtrack of the developers is very important to us, and that because especially with off plans, that is going to be a very high factor for determining, yes, whether you are going to have high blood pressure or a heart attack at any point in time in the project timeline, or you're not even going to get your project at the end. And we would love for all of our clients to be able to get their properties at the end of the duration that they were promised. It may probably be a month or 2 or something, late, maybe even 6 months, with explanations, and we all know that there are extingent circumstances that could probably happen, but at least we would want to ensure that we're not having stories that are following us where our clients are saying, oh, we're still 2 years down the line, we've not gotten our project, or 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the line, we've not gotten our our property after that, and we want to go to court, because that could happen, and that is happening a lot right now. So so that is it about the reputation, the track record of the developer. The next thing that you also want to look out for, and this also falls back to the reputation and track record of the developer, is to know what is it that that developer is known for. So there are lots of times where I go, on maybe Twitter. I think Twitter is the most volatile in terms of really saying their mind. Like, Twitter people, they don't joke, they don't play at all. And you're on Twitter and you'd hear people saying, but why does property have to be so expensive all the time? And it's so expensive when you're having empty buildings. And this is an actual discussion thread that I was on some time ago. And they're like, it's so expensive, there's so many empty buildings, probably don't even finish them. One thing that we all forget is that every developer has a target client that they want to attend to, that they want to be able to patronize, they want to be able to serve. So maybe at the point in time that you are trying to invest, you like their property, but it's not meant for you. Sorry about that. The same way that coaches and business trainers would tell you that know who you're serving, and then tailor your product or your messaging towards that person. The same thing applies in property. There are certain people who build for the middle income. There are people who build mass. There are people who build premium. There are people who want to build contemporary. You have to understand what that developer or who that developer is targeting to know whether you actually fit into that. So if, for example, you are somebody who is very finicky about design details and how the rooms are, how the rooms are built, the space and things like that, and you go and you're talking to a developer who's just used to building in mass, you are going to have premium tiers at the end of the period. And I'm saying this because you may want to do this, you may want to go through this process by yourself, but if you don't want to go through the process by yourself and you go work with a broker who understands this process, then at least you can at least go with some of these guidelines and say, okay, these are things that I understand and I know that are supposed to be, and it helps you to ask the right questions. Which brings me to the last point about what it is that you need to look out for. There are key questions that you need to be able to ask when you are going into an off-plan property. And we categorize them into 4. One is what type of building. Second is what caliber or what category of clients are you building for. 3, how flexible are you with payments? And 4 is how detailed are you with communication? These 4 factors are what also help us to know where we are going to fill in the gap for you. Because the fact that we are the broker for a client, it doesn't stop the client from wanting what they want. So if a client wants constant communication, we have to then fill in the gap to give that. But if the property developer is on point with their communication and updates and all of that, then we don't necessarily have to do that. We just have to make sure that the client is getting those updates and that communication consistently from the developer, and we then follow up, the same way that it is, because you're still our client. The fact that you bought a property from us doesn't stop you from being our client. We will work with you. We'll stay with you throughout the process until you're even given your keys. So for us, that customer satisfaction is very important. So if we know that the developer is not going to be able to deliver on certain things, say for example communication, we can probably waive that. Why? Because we'll fill in the gap for that. But anything other than that, we can't. We wouldn't even advise that clients should go for that. So please note those 4 questions, and if you want me to take the 4 questions that you have to factor in when you're buying an off plan. If you want me to take them again, please just note that in the comment section, and then I can repeat them. But for purpose of, hey world, how are you? Right. So, but just before anybody should do that, I'm just going to run through them all over again. First would be who the developer is building for, what type of timelines are their timelines prompts, flexibility of payments, sorry, I'm forgetting now, what type of building are they known for? And I say type of building because some developers are just known to build smallish, compact little things, and they would deliver them as such. One, as a way that they feel that they are actually keeping the property under a certain price tag. So, that's just their style. So if we know that our client is not that type of person like spacious properties, we wouldn't even take you there at all. So those are the 4 points that we think that are very important, that you must ask the questions when you are going to invest in an off-plan property. Now the last point about that, and this is before you even sign the dotted lines of any off-plan, even actually any property investment whatsoever, is your due diligence. Due diligence. Please. Due diligence is the most important thing that you can do to secure your investment. If you don't do your due diligence on a property and the developer that you are going to work with, you are setting yourself up for heartache, tears, pain, everything that you can imagine. Ask your broker, have you done due diligence on this developer? How good are they? What's their backtrack? Who are they? How long have they been in business? Where is their office? Can you get some form of communication from even the company themselves and all of that? And that way, all you need is a property lawyer or even just a lawyer who's going to go do some due diligence on the company to just check out. I mean, you know how it is these days. We can all go to CAC and check out who's on the board, who's what in the company and all of that, so that at least that way you get some form of assurance that you are not even just dealing with some setup that is somewhere in the air and they are just coming out of the blue to come and say that this is what they're doing. Look for things that they've done in the past. If you even can get an audit, some form of guarantee from the company also that yes, that this is who they are, maybe a profile, basically that's what's the word I was looking for, a profile from the company that says this is who they are, this is where they think they're going to in the real estate space. They have plans, they have long-term plans. They're not just a one project wonder or magician. Then at least you know that at least that is one form of the due diligence that you have done. Now that is one form, like one part of the due diligence that you would have done. The next part of the due diligence that you want to do is on the land itself. The land. If there are issues on the land that your property is on and somebody should come and contest the land, that person takes land and whatever is on it. Because the question would be, uproot what is on the land and go. Nobody I know has uprooted a house. So if your due diligence on the land is faulty, you are automatically going to lose that. Also, if the project is being built on a property that has already been earmarked by the government for something else, you are going to lose it. We've all heard about properties that are being demolished all around town, literally, and it's not just on the island, like in different places and for different reasons now also. Some that they say they are blocking parts of the road that are supposed to be drainages, or they are too far forward and all of that. Those people are losing their properties. On Lekki Express Road, for example, they had plans to widen the road, but some people had built really close to the road. All those shanties, shops and all of that, they're gone. And they're gone. Why? Because they were what the government would call illegal structures. So your due diligence must include verifying whether that property that you are trying to acquire is actually a legal building. Which brings me to the point that, the one thing that is literally the most underrated, and a lot of people overlook it. And I think it's because of the difficulty that the developers also even get to be able to get those things. And that would be the government-approved building plans. Now, if you've ever tried to get a mortgage, then you would know that the government-approved building plan is non-negotiable. If anybody should negotiate that with you and they're giving you the money for it, then even they are shady. Because the government-approved building plan means that they also have guaranteed that the building is legal. The building construction model is legal. The plans for all the electricals, all the plumbing and all of that is up to standard. Think about health and safety for people who are very conversant with the oil and gas sector. I think they're the most diligent with health and safety. But think about that. Health and safety also goes into play with what gets approved in your building plan. If your building plan is not approved, and sometimes it can take a while to get approved as a developer, and I'm not saying that that's right, but if as a developer you would rather have your building plan in place, then please go ahead and wait and plan for that time that you will have to wait for your building plan to come out. But when you are investing, please always try to make sure that at least you get some form of that inclusive in your due diligence, because that way you are double guaranteeing that your building is where it's supposed to be and how it's supposed to be, and at least you know that your money is safe for that. So just a quick recap, what are the 3 things that I would always say should be done in due diligence? One, you're checking on the company. Two, you're checking on the land. And three, you are checking on the building plan. You're making sure that there is an approved building plan in place. Right. So we're gonna come to do's and don'ts of for off-plan investing, and in a lot of ways we have actually checking on the company. So in a lot of ways we have touched on some of the do's and don'ts, but there's some of them that I have not talked about, and I'm going to touch on them right now. One, if you are going to invest in an off-plan project, I would advise that your payment plan should have certain milestones tied to it. Why? Because you want to be able to say that if the developer is not delivering at a certain point in time, then you are able to not make payment. And the next, so you are tying progress or status to your payment. Now, a lot of developers are going to tell you, oh no, just make payments on a monthly basis and all of that. Please ask them what they are going to give you in return to ensure that when you're making these payments every month, that at least you're also seeing that work is continuing. If they're not interested in giving you anything about that, or they don't necessarily have a plan that looks like, yes, they're going to continue with work, then please feel free to step out of that. I tell people, you may get a good deal on one hand, but that good deal, especially for off plans, the good deal must deliver to fruition for it to remain a good deal. So think about it like if you're getting, if for example you're asked to pay 22 million for a 2-bedroom apartment, for example, and you pay your 22 million. However, at the end of the line where you're supposed to be getting your property, you're not getting your property out in that timeline. What's happening then is that, one, you're going to be losing time that you could have been earning income on that property. So you're literally losing money. Two, you are going to be chasing. You're going to chase. You're probably going to get a lawyer to chase them. And all of that is going to cost you money. So again, you're losing money. So not being able to track or monitor what it is that you are paying as against what it is that you are getting, you are actually shortchanging yourself, and you are setting yourself up to actually have spent more on that property in the long run. The fact that you are invested in an off plan and you are getting it quote unquote cheaper than what it should be on the open market doesn't mean that you should then say you want to be able to gamble or play away with that profit margin. No, keep your profit margin and put that profit margin into another property, into another project, whatsoever it is. Make sure that you fight for every couple, not every couple, because every couple doesn't matter. Every naira, 1,000 of naira, whatever it is, fight for as much value that you can actually keep in terms of the money that you are paying. 1 second, I want to put this on so it's get a bit dark. Awesome. Right. So that is that. So when you basically tie your payments, your installments or payments to milestones, you are able to track the progress of the project as against the money that you are continually paying. And that way, you are at least, both parties are sure that nobody's cheating anybody or nobody's taking advantage of the other person. Don't feel like because they are the developer and that you are then you are at their mercy. No, everybody right now in this kind of transaction, both parties need each other. You have to do your part for the other party to also do their part. So think about it like that. It is a business transaction that each person should be accountable to the others. Next point is make sure that you get a standard contract in place. Not a contract that just says, yes, you have bought, this is where your property is, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you that. Make sure that your contract includes indemnity, it includes a a non-performance, and it also includes a refund policy where they are telling you that if you want to pull out, because that may also be an option. Something may happen and you would need to pull out of that project at that point in time. And if you're going to pull out of that project at that point in time, what are your chances? What is it that you need to do? What are you going to get back? Make sure that your contract from the beginning has that. It would also tell you within what timelines it is that you are going to get paid back your refund, so that you know from the get-go that this is what you may have to do. And in the event that where you want to transfer the investment to someone else, then those terms also have to be included in your contract. Now, why am I saying that these are important things to have included? You want as much as possible to prevent any unknown factors from coming into play just at the top of the hat, at the point at which you are already financially committed. Because what then happens is that you then start to haggle and negotiate and fight or whatever it is over what it is that they say that they're going to do, whereas you're not happy with that. But when all of these have been stated in the beginning, then at least you understand that these are the terms under which you are in this and that you can go on for it. Right. The next thing that you also want to have in your contract is the non-performance clause, and I want to talk about that a bit. Now, people have had, there have been times when developers would not be able to deliver completely within a certain time frame, and there's certain instances, you would find force majeure, that's what it's called, where there are just certain acts, like for example, it could be, so for example, last year we had the NSARS where a lot of work had to just literally stop. There was also COVID, nobody's going to expect that amidst COVID and all of that, where people were not working, people were advised as much as possible to stay at home under lockdown, that your construction project is going to go forward and deliver in the exact time that it was meant to deliver. It's not going to happen. Let's be realistic. It's your money, we agree. You're still having to pay and it's costing you and all of that, but let's just be realistic. Nobody's going to be able to deliver in that kind of time. If your developer delivered, please give them a kudos, clap for them, celebrate them, whatever it is, because that means that they have gotten so advanced to the fact that they have such certain protocols in place that either are housing their staff or they are able to work around it. That's great. However, for general developments, those things may cause delays, and you will need to be able, your developer needs to be able to let you know, prepare your mind for all of that, so that it doesn't now become an issue where those things happen and then somebody's expecting that you should understand. When it comes to money, there's no assumption that somebody should understand. Everything has to be communicated. There also have to be updates. So your broker also has to be able to fill you in on this is what's going on. These are the things that we're going through and all of that. So with all of these things, your broker has to also know what your contract states, because your broker then becomes the person who is safeguarding you in what it is. And this is why a lot of times I would always advise clients who want to go into off plans to always have a broker in the middle, because the broker helps make it easier on you. You don't have to do all of this work. Which brings us to the last point about if you want to acquire property via off plan, please make sure that you have a broker. Please make sure that your broker has at least some experience in handling these type of transactions, because it's not a cut and paste. As much as we could say that it's easy or it's straightforward, it's not like that in every situation. There would be circumstances that have to be managed, especially from a client's perspective, and if your broker doesn't have the experience to be able to handle that, then it becomes a problem for you, and you would probably end up getting burnt, or you would start feeling cheated. And those are the things that we don't need to continue to happen in the society, because the truth of the matter is that if there is more trust and there is more partnership and there's more collaboration in terms of things in transactions like this, then a lot of the negative experiences that you as clients tend to have would not always be there. Why? Because they would be able to be worked through. People would be able to say, oh yes, this thing happened, this circumstance happened, but it was worked out. We were able to work it out. At least we have come to a compromise and all of that. So this is why I would say always ensure that your broker has some level of experience handling off plans. Now you now get to the most common question that people have asked us: how long can an off-plan property investment take? Short answer: it can take up to 2 years for you to get your off-plan property. You can get a payment plan of up to 2 years, but the most popular payment plans right now are between 12 and 18 months. Yes, there are a few developers who are able to stretch these payment plans and tell you that you can pay for as long as 5 years, but there are clauses also included in those payment plans. Whereas the clause that is not always put on the front burner is the fact that if you're paying for up to 5 years, you would have to have paid at least 60 to 70% of the cost of your building before you can take possession. Now, please note this: you have a payment plan that allows you to pay for 5 years, but in that period where you're paying for 5 years, there is a point at which you can take possession. So paying for it over that period of time doesn't necessarily mean that you can be living in it. And this is the biggest difference between investing off plan and or taking out a mortgage for your property. A mortgage would allow you to make your payments over an extended period of time and still live in the property basically from the beginning of the whole transaction. But when you are going off plan, you have to also understand that there has to be a certain time frame that you're not going to be able to live in the property. So you still have to be paying rent wherever it is that you currently are till you have at least fulfilled that financial requirement. The most so that handles the 5-year payment plans. If you're talking about the 2-year payment plans or the 12 months or the 18 months payment plans, those ones tend to require you to make the payments before you even take possession of the property. So with those type of plans, that means that the period in which the construction is ongoing will be for that period of time. And if you haven't paid up, chances are that you're not going to be allowed to be able to take possession of the property. So as much as you want to be able to stretch the payments for as long as possible, also note that you cannot start earning money off of that property until you have paid up and then you're able to take possession. Then the next category of payment plans that you could get with off plans are those that would probably say pay in 3 months and you're not charged any interest, or if you pay in 6 months you will be charged interest, 6 to 12 months or to 18 months you would be charged interest. Okay, sorry, I think I just got cut off by my connection. Yes, so in instances where you have the being charged sorry, can you hear me? Please just drop a comment, say yes, no, you can hear me. I think I got cut off for a bit. Hello? Can everybody hear me? Oh, awesome. Thank you. Yes. So I was saying that with the payment plans that you would probably see payment plans that say you can pay in 3 months, or you can pay in 6 months, or 12 months, and in some cases you would be charged an interest, and in some cases you wouldn't be charged an interest. Those are basically at the prerogative of the developer. The developer will define what it is that they can give with or without charging you interest. So different terms would apply. So always ask for that also in terms of what the costs are. What your charges may end up being. A very common one for people who want to be able to want to be able to charge an interest, they would say that if you can pay within 3 months, then you would not have to pay an interest. But if you're paying for longer than 3 months, then you would be charged an interest, which means that the total cost of your property would then be higher than people that paid within 3 months. So say, for example, you're taking on a 2-year payment plan, and your property originally is, say, 20 million, but when you are paying over 18 months, then the cost of your property then becomes 22 million, for example. So that is what I mean by the interest. So it's not usually a lot, but at least it helps the developer also to better absorb the fact that the cost of money is coming, the money that they're getting is coming over a longer period of time. So at this point, I want to ask, who has questions? Questions, please. Some people had sent in their questions, but I want to give priority to those of you that are on here live in the session to be able to ask your questions. At least that way we can make it more interactive as against me just talking through all the information. So, questions. Do you think that this has helped you to know more? These are just my questions over a period. Do you think that this has helped you to know more, or do you have specific questions you want to know about? Clarifications that you want? Have you had an experience or something that you're going through currently, or you're trying to get into one and you're not sure about something? Please ask your questions, and let me answer those for you. No questions? No questions. Okay. Since there are no questions, let me take some of the questions that people had sent in. The first question that we got, okay, yes, and well, please go ahead, but whilst you're typing, I'm going to just take one question on that I'd gotten previously. A question that we got was someone asking, why are the cost of off-plan properties getting higher this day? Right, why? Basically, it's the value of the properties. So this is the thing. When we say value of the property, the basic thing is, what is the cost to actually build the property? If the cost of construction is on the rise, then the price of the properties are definitely going to go up. So irrelevant of whether it's an off-plan or it's a fully built property, cost of properties in general are going up. So we should at least expect that the cost of off-plan properties also would have a bit of a markup, compared to what they could have been some years back, a year, 2 years, maybe even 6 months ago, thereabout. You would expect that would come into play. So right off the bat, why the cost of off-plan projects are getting higher these days is because of the cost of development. cost of development is going up, cost of land is going up, cost of products is going up. For example, cement has literally become times 2, like 200% price increase. So all of these costs have to be accommodated into what it is, because if they're not accommodated, then we can't expect the developers to build without the money. Basically, it's just what it is. So that is the thing. Another reason would be where the off-plan projects are coming up. So one thing that we have realized right now is the fact that more and more people want to be in developed areas. So the cost of building in those developed areas, because of the cost of the land as the first factor, would always be higher than what it could be. So when you hear a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom is this amount in, say, Lekki, for example, and then you go to Aja, and then you're looking at the cost of the property there, then you would probably think that, oh yes, that it's more, it's too expensive in Lekki, but you don't want to have to move there, and then you're trying to look for something cheaper. It can't necessarily work that way, because the cost of the land would always have to be the baseline baseline factor for what the cost of the property is in the end. Okay, so if anybody else has a question, please drop the question in the comment section. You could also use the question sticker on there so that we could have the question pop up on the screen when I'm talking through it. Somebody sent a question asking that what are the possible challenges with investing off plan. We've talked about those in terms of what are the things to look out for, but I'm going to recap. And I'll talk about them as challenges. The most recurrent challenge has been, two of them actually, the delivery timeline and meeting the expectation of what it is that you think that you're getting. So for example, we think about the whole what I ordered versus what I got type of scenario. When you invest in off plan, you're not looking at a prototype to see this is what you're buying, but you're looking at building plans. And to be honest, many clients don't look at building plans the way that they should. Why? Because sometimes they come up and, so yes, it looks technical, but at least if you look at a building plan, key things that you could look out for would be the size of the rooms, where the windows, where are the doors, because that would give you a basic understanding of what your building is going to look like in the end. Every other thing in terms of what it looks like aesthetically is like thinking about makeup on a girl's face. So yes, the paints have to look good. Yes, the quality of paint has to be good. Yes, the light fittings that have to be physically showing, they have to look good. But the bottom line things that you really need to look out for would be size of the rooms, where the doors are at, where the windows are at, because all of these things factor into whether you have enough lighting, whether you have ventilation and all of that, or whether the house is even going to be small for you. A lot of, especially clients who are abroad, the US, Europe, they're very particular in knowing what is the size of the property, the total living space. And that is not necessarily a common thing over here, because people just ask me, what is it like? What are the size like? And then the person will say, they're sizable. What is sizable? Sizable to me is not size, may not be sizable to you. So all of these things are relative, but if you look at the plan, you would get the answer to those questions on there. And so that was that. The next factor, that could be a challenge, it would be delivery timelines. And we talked about this a lot. When the product is meant to be delivered, when the product is actually delivered, can become a problem. Why? Because in some cases, some people have even planned for the product to mature at a time that they need to move from where they currently are. So think about a client who has bought into an off-plan property and the project was meant to have been delivered, say in March, for example, and the client's current rent was going to become due in April, for example. If they don't get their property in March, then that's going to become a problem. And that's going to become a problem that may not be resolvable unless they are able to get a concession from their current landlord to allow them to stay the extra period of time. So in terms of delivery, so that is it in terms of delivery timelines, or the situation of what you ordered versus what you're getting in the end. Because trust me, from off plans, a lot of the details are in the planning, and you as the client who has bought in, you are only probably going to be looking at 3D pictures, and 3D pictures can be anything. Like, we all know that 3D pictures may look better than what they actually come out as in the end. But if you know your developer and you know that your developer builds exactly what they have designed, then at least you know that you are confident, which brings us back to the track record of the developer. Next question we got was, what are the different stages? No. How do you define the different stages for construction projects? I recently tried to buy a project and they said it was off plan, and I expected to get a payment plan of up to a year, but I only could get 6 months. Okay, so again, we talk about timelines. When the project is just starting, before they break ground or just when they've broken ground, that's when you can get the longest payment plan. Why? Because they are for off-plan projects, the developers are willing to allow you to spread your payments up to the period where they are almost ready to deliver the project. That's on one hand. Now, if you come in and the building is, say, 50% done, and then you want a payment plan of up to a year, that's probably going to be very difficult. Why? Because that means that you will still be you'll be wanting to keep paying money after the product has been delivered and you have moved in. Majority of the developers at that point in time want to be able to move on to another project, so they need to be able to wrap that up. So being able to approve you for that, unless you have a personal relationship either with your broker or with the developer themselves, then that may be a challenge. But most of the time, if the project that you want to key into is, say, 50% gone, or the period that they're going to deliver in is shorter than the timeline for the payments that you want, then you may not be able to get the extended payments as you are thinking of. Yes. Let's see. Okay, somebody also asked, what do we classify as the profile of the developer? The profile of the developer for us, is largely all the things that we would consider when we're thinking about the track record. So think about when you want to hire a staff, and you think about what are the things that the staff can do, what are the things that the staff has done in the past. All of those things are what are important for you to also think about as when it comes to a developer. So think about, for a developer, always think about, one, what projects have they completed in the past? Two, the project that they are thinking about doing, how feasible is it? Is it in a location that there is room for expansion? Are they thinking expanding over time? Is it a phased project? Things like that would also come into play. Three, what is their capability? Do they have technical partners? Are they taking it on all by themselves, or do they have maybe partners that are also going to work on the construction or the monitoring or insurance even sometimes for that? So that those are things that you also look at in terms of track record. If you ever find a developer who says that they have M&E team, people that are doing current evaluations, then be more comfortable with that. And most of the time, if you go to the project site, you would see a board which tells you all the partners on there. So if you just look at that, just get a snapshot of that, you'd be able to also look at how detailed they are with their planning. Please don't hold that against any developer who doesn't have the board on their side. Sometimes they don't have the board there. All you have to do is probably just ask for the information, and then all of that are things that you can look at in terms of the profile. Right. Does anybody on here have any questions? Any questions from anybody on here? Any feedback? Say, not feedback, anything you want to share about maybe an experience you are currently going through? Nothing? Okay then. So for us, from us, if there are no questions, then we could just wrap it up here, just so that this hallway. Okay, hallway, you're asking a question, I think. Don't feel pressure to ask the questions here. If you think about them later and you just want to just find something that you're thinking about or that comes to mind, please feel free to send us a DM. We'll be happy to answer the questions also via DM. So, if we get a certain type of question a number of times, then we could also reshare it as a post on the page, and then you could come back to it. But we would we would save this live session and post it on the page so that you can go back and watch it at any point in time. It would probably also be cleaned up and put up on YouTube. I'm not too sure about that right now, but it may go up on YouTube, and if that happens, we'll also let you know. So you could probably share the link with people that are not on Instagram. Hallway, did you want to ask a question before we wrap up for the evening? I think our time is quite fast spent already. Okay, so in the absence of any questions, I'd like to say thank you to everybody who joined this live session. It was a pleasure sharing from my experience of helping customers or clients to invest via off-plan. If you think that you want to go into the off-plan investing space, please feel free to send us a DM or look at any of the offers on our page. You could also look at our website, www.leratonadams.com.ng. I'm going to update that into our bio later tonight or tomorrow. Let me commit to tomorrow, so that you can go on there and look at that. The website is going to start having blog articles that you can always refer to with questions that you probably would have had or things that you would want to know. And if you do have questions, feel free to always just ask us. So thank you very much for coming. Do have a good evening, and let us know if and how we can be of help with your next investment that you may want to do via off plans. Thank you. Bye.